I didn't think I realized until after the after making the whole entire thing how much of it echoed the sentiment of my first album and past projects. But I think it makes so much sense. Obviously, like I'm one person, so if I make art about my life, I think a lot of it's going to be cyclical. And
Mm,
but I think I feel really kind of glad about how naturally everything evolved together. And I was listening back to my EPs Dawn and Dusk over like last week when I was driving back from the very last show of the tour. And I realized a lot of the vocabulary, even in the lyrics, ended up becoming titles of songs of this project. And it's
right.
interesting to me that that kind of happens. I guess it speaks so much to the fact that we've kind of all been sitting in these same thoughts trying to figure out what to make of them for the last 2 years, and to listen to those two projects that were made at the very beginning of this entire period of the pandemic, and then listen to the project that I just most recently released after kind of the end of figuring out what those last 2 years have been like.
Mm,
It's cool to see the progression of the way that I felt about it 2 years ago versus now, and kind of learning and growing from it and understanding it on a more maybe more optimistic level than I did initially when I was
sure.
first writing about it. It was really emotional. I held on to, I think, the premise of it for a really long time before felt ready to actually put it into a piece of work. It took me about a full year after his passing to kind of understand and process the experience of seeing him get older and understanding, what death means, I think, too. And it's really interesting, I think, in the large scheme of the project to kind of understand what does growing up mean, and is it this kind of like finite period of our life? Is it exactly when we're in our teenage into being in our 20s? But I look at someone like my grandfather, who I saw him for his 81st birthday, and he still had so much that he wanted to do and so much that he felt excited about in the world, despite looking at his life and understanding that maybe he didn't have that much time left. And I think it was really important to me to kind of express the multi dimensionality of what it means to be older. And I think, to understand it from my own experience of, turning 22 and turning 21, but then also to look at the other opposite end of somebody who is so much older, but still kind of has those same questions of even wondering who he is now that he's in his 80s. Like it's this
Yeah.
never ending question. And I think that can be so scary, but there can also be an enormous amount of peace and knowing that it's this thing that we'll just constantly have with us, and to kind of find a comfortable relationship with it. I mean, the song I wrote was really, really bad though. Like I
Of
have the
course.
lyrics still. I've saved them on my computer and I read them back the other day and I was just like, wow, this is an awful song. But it was just a bunch of kind of mishmashed words that rhymed together. And the song was about having to actually write a song and not
Yeah.
knowing what the song would be about. And I remember writing it and kind of being like, this is silly and kind of fun. And I think it did lend itself to me writing other songs that were kind of like supposed to be funny, but also kind of getting at this like sort of idea that maybe it's a little bit sadder and more frustrating. And I think, my earlier songs, for example, like 1-800 Date Me was like a satire song about feeling lonely. But if I hadn't written that song when I was 13 years old about not knowing what to write a song about, I think I wouldn't have figured out that I could keep writing songs that could also be kind of like funny and weird and satirical. So I think I was hooked. I kept writing, and I wrote a lot of bad songs after that point. I still write some bad songs sometimes, but
Sure.
I got better at it. As that people pleaser kid that was a teacher's pet and did everything that everybody wanted her to do, songwriting was this other realm of creativity that I hadn't given other people access to. It was only for me, and it was could only be about what I was experiencing and what I was feeling. It didn't have rules. It didn't
Mm,
have homework. It was just for me, and I could spend as much time as I wanted on a song, or as little time, and it didn't need to be good, it didn't need to be bad, it could just be what it was. And
yeah.
so I loved it because no one was telling me how to do it. It wasn't like classical music where I had to play something softly or play something loudly. I just got to make my own rules. And I think that was really exciting because I didn't have a lot of areas in my life, I guess, as a teenager where I felt like I had that freedom. And I think,
Mm.
you know, other teenagers find other outlets. I was just one of those kids that I didn't go to parties. I didn't do anything. I was just in the back of my room using Rhyme Zone, learning how to write songs. And that was it. It was so scary. I remember the day I told them, I walked into the kitchen. I was like, Mom and Dad, So I need to tell you something. And I think they thought it was way worse than just their child making songs in the back of her bedroom. I think they were ready for me to tell them like some crazy, crazy thing that I was going to be like emotionally scarred from for the rest of my life. And I told them that I was making music and sharing it online. And my parents went, really? Is that what you're doing in the back of your room? Like, we thought you were just singing songs that you really liked. And I was like, I am, but I'm posting them online and I'm making like covers and I'm making original music too. And they were like, can we listen to it? And I was like, you can listen to it, but you can't do it in front of me. And I remember I left the room to go sit in my bedroom, but the kitchen speakers are really, really loud. And so I could hear them clicking through all of my YouTube videos and watching them out loud and like just feeling like my face was so red. I was so embarrassed, but I also knew that that was the only way to just get it over with. I was like, it's going to be so much worse if I wait any longer. So I just had to get it over with. 100% had imposter syndrome. I still have imposter syndrome. I think it's so easy, especially when you're not actively seeing your own identity reflected in the area of work that you're pursuing. Like I didn't have mixed race Asian American queer people to look up to that were, writing songs and sharing them online. That didn't exist ever in, my sort of consumption of the internet beyond maybe spaces like YouTube. And so that was why I felt comfortable to post on that. But it was also really scary, I think, to think about pursuing something in the music industry when there wasn't anybody that looked like me, that sounded like me, that felt like me. And to also do it in such an untraditional way as well. And to be a young person too. I think it's so easy for, people to be really judgmental of anybody that's online, but I think you are more susceptible to criticism and frankly like bigotry and hate and discrimination when you have identities that aren't necessarily reflected in the larger scheme of things. So it was scary to me, but I think the stumble that I felt like I was going through in order to get into the industry also allowed me to open up the door to understand that there is not a right way that this needs to be done, and that the non-traditional pathway is still a valid one, even if it's not something you actively see happening. Um, and lots of people have blown up on the internet, but I do feel like I was kind of on this like very first wave of bedroom pop that I got carried on with me. And it's interesting to see kind of the progression into the way that the music industry has totally been turned on its head in the past like 3 years too. So um, I don't know, it's weird. I'm still figuring it out
Yeah.
too. Yeah.